work hard for your things. Don't let someone else take them away. If you see something suspicious or need police assistance of any kind, immediately call.
See, here's the trick right here.
97 period about our community.
Got my 2 monitors set up.
Nice.
Stay in the loop of what's happening in our community by following the Chapel Borough Instagram page. Get the scoop on what's going on around town, learn about local businesses, get all the latest UNC sports updates, and enter to win our Instagram giveaways. It's the best way to be a part of our community online. Find us on Instagram at WCHL Chapel Borough.
WCHL Chapel Hill, streaming live on chapelborough.com.
I like the old street, East Alabama, Chapel Hill. Leading independent voice of UNC sports. Everything from A to Z. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now, Inside Carolina Live, Joey Powell.
What is good? What is good? What is good? Man, I did not think we would ever get here. It's been some days since UNC played a football game last, but here we are, kickoff day, Friday night lights, all of the good stuff you can think of. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I am Joey Powell, the host of Inside Carolina Live, because Tommy Ashley has bailed on us, but I'm telling you right now, the man to my left, which doesn't really work because radio is an auditory medium, but the man to my left has more knowledge than a freezer full of books. Jason Staples. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing well. And does it feel like with the COVID season and everything else, it feels like we haven't played football in years? There's going to be fans in the stands.
Human beings, real live humans with a pulse. But we're excited to be here. We're at Oldies Tavern on 54 East in Chapel Hill. There's a nice crowd of Tar Heel fans here to join us. Yes, they've got the woos going already, which you know it's going to be a great night. Tonight, kickoff, 6 p.m. on ESPN. You can listen to it on the Tar Heel Radio Network here on WCHL. You can watch on ESPN if you want. But the big thing is, well, before I get into the big thing, special thanks to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring us. Brighton McConnell's manning the station, making sure that we don't get off the rails and get off the air. Thanks to WCHL staff for helping us. Jack Carmichael here on scene. But yeah, Gregory Hall, the new main man for IC is here with us. He's going to be jumping on in just a little bit. Jason, I feel like not only have we come through the desert to get to this kickoff this evening, I feel like the Tar Heels might have a chance to really show out. Am I missing something or am I oversimplifying?
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, the thing I'm so excited to is I want to see that defense, because I think for the first time, I mean, really, maybe since Butch was here, you look at that roster on the defensive side and you go, there's some dudes. There's some guys that can actually play, that you're excited to see what they can actually become. Some of the best ones are young, so you're not – that adds to that uncertainty and excitement about what you're going to see. But I'm really excited to see what kind of level of play they can get from some of those youngsters.
How long has it been? And you mentioned since Butch, and it may even be before Butch, going back to MAC 1.0, since they had a legit 10 deep of dudes, to use your word, on the defensive line. Just the D-line. Like, they could roll out 10 guys tonight that can play meaningful snaps. I don't know if they're going to be major contributors, but meaningful snaps being somewhere between 5 and 12. And that's something that UNC fans are just not used to.
No, and they're going to need to get more used to it because there's more on the way. They're as much or more dudes than what they've got already. So I think that 2009 team, when you go back, and the 2010 team that should have been, those are the teams that had more talent that was developed and comparable depth of talent to what they've got now. But it's been a long time. It's been since then that you had this kind of talent to be able to put up front, this kind of size that can actually move up front and cause problems.
Did you ever play in Blacksburg at Lane Stadium? I
did not. I actually covered a game there on the sideline. Okay. So I've been there when it was at its full throat. I was disappointed, to be honest.
So, well, okay, you're walking right through the door open for you. You seem to be one of the folks that is just not buying the hype of Lane Stadium, and everybody knows Enter Sandman, which again the rumors going around this week that Metallica's going to play live. Okay, that has been a live and dead rumor for at least 10 years, but the rumors popped up again this year, so we know it's time for real football again. But Jason, you're one of the guys who really kind of reinforces this thought that a building ain't going to beat you. And yeah, it's going to be loud. You know, EJ Wilson's has been on this show before and talked about how loud it can get when there's a meaningful game going on. But elaborate a little bit about your thoughts. Like, okay, once you get through the wow factor of the start of the game, it's just football, right?
Yeah, it's just football. I mean, the biggest thing is that it can impact your communication. So on offense especially, you've got to really have a good sense of communication and snap count. Snap count is a big factor on the road. That's where you're going to see more false starts, that sort of thing, because guys don't always hear as well. And then there's the momentum factor where you can feel the game maybe slipping away. Team is the home team is playing especially well. You can feel like I really have to press and get this. So that can affect your mindset. But other than that, there's not a whole lot that of difference in terms of the field's the same dimensions. You're still playing the same players on the other side. And if your players are better than their
offensive standpoint tonight, when you're breaking in some new guys, and I'm speaking about the Tar Heels here, you're breaking in some new guys. When it is loud, how do they change up maybe how they do the snap count? They just do, first movement, first hand clap. They can't get cute. So to your point, like it's that and Sam Powell triggering that offense this evening, at least coming up to the line and starting to play.
Well, the thing is, when you're playing against a team that does have edge rushers, you can't just go first movement or first sound or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't go with timed counts as easily because those guys start to anticipate and they get in the backfield. That's where the building does help you. Now, again, Wayne Stadium is not Clemson, right? Clemson's a whole different animal when it comes to
don't let any hooky.
The youth on this team is out wide.
Yeah.
And wide receivers don't have to know the play count. You're not supposed to.
You don't go until everybody else goes.
You're looking in at the ball, and wide receivers, you're told you're basically playing like the defense. You go when the ball moves. So that shouldn't affect you. And you've got a bunch of veterans up front. So you just go through business as usual, and I expect them to use some different snap counts to try to neutralize the rush in this game because they're confident in their veteran quarterback and their 3-year starters on the offensive line.
Let's dig into that a little bit. You talked about where UNC's youth on offense is. It is going to be on the outside. I do think one of the keys to the game tonight is going to be, can UNC win some of those battles outside? We'll get to looking at Virginia Tech's two-day here in a little bit, but one of the things that jumps off the page at me is they're immediately running with 2 freshmen in their back 4. So break it down for the average fan, myself included. What can UNC do tonight, whether it's play calling or whether it's just out-athleting them? What can UNC do tonight to win those battles on the outside so they can keep the offense moving?
Well, it really is about your guy executing and being better than their guy. And I think a couple of the keys, Josh Downs is going to be Josh Downs in this game. There may be a nerve drop here or there early on. You've got young guys, but Josh Downs is going to get open and he's going to make some plays. But the guys that have to step up and show that they can actually create space and win one-on-ones, and that's an athletic thing more than it is a youth thing, and it's a matter of finishing and doing what you do every day in practice, that's Antoine Smith, that's Emory Simmons. Those guys have to actually play their best, and it's just about doing – the guy that I'm most worried about there is Antoine Smith, who's actually he's as talented as anybody on this roster. He's
been in the program for a while.
Yeah, he's been in the program, and they were so excited when they landed him out of Florida.
Yeah.
A lot of programs coming out of high school felt he was a top 10 wide receiver in the country.
He's got the measurables.
He has every measurable you could want, but confidence and all of that has been a problem, especially since that injury.
Yeah.
So the question is, for me, if I'm Phil Longo, what can I do to get that guy a little bit of early confidence to make sure that he knows this is just like practice, you've been dominating, you've been handling your business in practice. You're ready to play at this level and show out. So I'm maybe feeding him a few shots down the field, and that really is what you've got to do. Is you've got to have those guys that can moss you, the guys that have some size and some length. Can they win those matchups outside against those Virginia Tech corners? And to me, that's an athletic experience.
So I'm going to throw this out there. I know Tar Heel fans and South Carolina subscribers are tired of hearing it, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I mentioned it. the amount of offense lost from roster turnover from last year, when you mention Antoine Green, he's the guy who's going to have an opportunity to take up some of that slack. He's going to have an opportunity to jump in and take some of those catches and some of those possessions that De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome, and again, not that he lost due to attrition, but isn't there this week, is Bo Corrales. So Antoine Green, you mentioned Josh Downs is going to be Josh Downs. Emory Simmons, again, another guy whose spark measurements are absolutely through the roof. Tell me about some other guys that could be those potential Moss candidates that have the 6'2", 6'3" height, the good wingspan, decent catch radius. We've heard about Stephen Gosnell. J.J. Jones has done some things in practice. If you're looking at one guy that isn't Antoine Green, that isn't Josh Downs, and that isn't Emory Simmons, who are you pointing to tonight?
The funny thing is,
you notice how I'm leading you to receivers, right? I'm getting right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that my first answer for that is in a wide receiver.
It's Garrett Walston?
No, it's Ty Chandler.
Oh, Chandler? That's
because
also
Chandler, when you watch his tape from Tennessee, the first thing that sticks out, aside from the fact that he's got home run speed,
tell me I get to see a wheel route tonight,
is you see him catch the ball like a wide receiver outside.
Yeah.
They lined him up at wide receiver, out wide. I mean, the furthest wide guy, and he would beat guys on routes and catch it like a wide receiver. So this gives you some options as a play caller where you line that guy up in the backfield and you get him matched up against the linebacker.
and that's a nightmare.
And that's tough. And then you get him matched up against the linebacker by formation and you motion him. And now you're treating him as a wide receiver, and you've got another guy that can make plays in space. That's the other guy that I'm interested to see how they use in this context, because I think we're going to see some 5-wide type offense this year with Sam Howell and with Chandler's ability out of the backfield. They're going to be times where they're just going to say, you know what, we're going to get Chandler out there, and somebody, whether it's Walston, Chandler, or Downs, is going to be matched up against their weakest inside cover guy.
And that's an instant matchup problem for Virginia Tech or any opponent.
And we're gonna target the duck. We're gonna find that guy, and we're gonna identify that guy can't cover that guy. And as often as not, it's not going to be Downs. They're going to put their best interior cover guy on him. So Walston or Chandler, they're going to have their opportunities because they're going to have that weaker safety or a linebacker on him, and those guys can run well enough and they'll get space. So I think Ty Chandler is actually the third guy on my list there, really the fourth guy after Downs and Antoine Smith and Simmons coming into today in terms of who I would expect to have some of those extra opportunities. And they showed they'll throw to the backs last year.
Yeah.
Javonte and Michael Carter had a ton of catches, 60 targets on the year. A lot of those targets will still go to the backs.
One of the best plays early in the year was an absolute breakdown where Javonte released against Boston College. Sam was able to get out of the pocket and hit him in stride, which turned into a 35-plus yard touchdown. I do think, to your point, Ty Chandler has that, especially if you look at not only what he did at Tennessee, but what the scouting report on him has been is that he can catch out of the backfield. And even if it's not in a 5-wide situation, I do like the prospects of being able to put him in and then stack a kid like Elijah Green or Caleb Hood or somebody in behind him and put them in the backfield. Because again, that's when you're pointing out a duck on the defensive side of the ball.
And by the way, as far as that wheel route, they did hit him on a wheel route in last year's game with Michael Carter.
Yes, and it was absolutely beautifully thrown ball.
It was a beautifully thrown ball. You've seen it on tape one. Route.
They got to prep for it. So what do you
got to expect it?
You go action for it, even if you don't throw it. You
the great thing is that you can go a wheel along, and then if they overcover the wheel, then you have a little post or something on top of it, and you can get some things out of that. Or one of my favorites is the old spread wheel and then a follow route from another guy. So you run a wheel with one guy, and then you actually have a vertical following behind that. So you're clear.
And somebody's naked. Like it just somebody's naked no matter what the defense does.
It's a tough thing to cover for a defense, especially if you haven't really seen it a bunch from an offense. So
for all of you listening at home, you can't see, but folks here can tell. I'm getting thinking about the multiple options that you would like Ty Chandler in the lineup. Okay, we haven't spent a ton of time talking about the opponents, and again, just high level look here before we go to the break in a second. Virginia Tech was bad in Chapel Hill last year, but I think it's important for fans to remember ravaged almost with COVID. They were down to what I think were like 2 walk-ons playing meaningful minutes in their back 7. They were not good. Braxton Burmeister was not good. And they still had a chance late in the fourth quarter to take the lead. And I think that's something that fans need to remember. So what are the things that we need to look at tonight, aside from, the major things I think fans are looking at is you're looking at Holston and Blackshear out of Virginia Tech's backfield. You're looking at Burmeister and seeing, can he beat you? It's important to remember he was bad early in the season, but last year in their last few games, his QB rating was over 160, so he's not trash. I think folks might remember the way he started the game in Chapel Hill last year. He was hot garbage, but he did not finish the year that way. So it's important to remember that. Trey Turner's a wide receiver I know you like. Their tight end Mitchell's probably one of the best in the league. What are we supposed to expect from the Virginia Tech offense tonight when they trot these guys out of the field?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is they've got guys that can change the scoreboard with their speed. They've got multiple guys, and actually they got a couple that we saw last year. I mean, Trey Turner, that is. Trey Turner was a problem last year. I thought coming out of high school he was a top 5 wide receiver in the country.
Yep.
And from right up the road, I mean, he's from Greensboro, so he's a guy that was on North Carolina's radar. They thought a lot of him coming out of high school as well. But along with that, Tavion Robinson, the slot receiver that they have,
also quick.
He gave Carolina fits last year. You got to remember, Carolina's secondary was not fully healthy for that game. They had some backups in that game, and they couldn't handle the interior, especially the tight end and slot receiver last year with the guys that they had covering them. That's the place that I'm circling in this game. So I think what they're going to try to do is basically they've got some elite corners on the outside. They're going to NFL corner, scoop the ball and scooped and scored, and Mitchell actually
ran him down.
Yes. Like he was down. He made up about 4 yards on him
on a corner.
In about 4 yards. So you're looking at a guy that can fly for the tight end position. And that's a concern. You have to know where he is. You have to treat him like a big play wide receiver, even though he's a big guy. And 2 guys that can make plays on the interior in the way that Virginia Tech likes to call the game. They're going to lull you to sleep and then try to hit something on a crosser, that sort of thing, where they're going to get you lost in traffic and one of those guys is going to have some space. You just have to make sure that you have your assignments correct, that you are communicating really well on the inside, and that you don't get outmanned. Those 2 guys are guys that I'm circling coming into this game to make sure that Carolina can handle it.
And rest assured, Jay Bateman and the rest of the defense are looking for those guys too. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live. Guys, we're finally going to have real football tonight, 6 o'clock on ESPN, Tar Heels in Blacksburg, to face the Virginia Tech Turkeys / whatever you want to call them. We're at Old East Tavern on 54 East in Chapel Hill. Please come by and see us. Jason Staples and yours truly will be here until 5 o'clock, and then we'll hand it over to the network. I appreciate you guys being here. You might remember that guy. He had a heck of a game last year. But we're going to hit a break. Yeah, not too bad. We're going to hit a break. We'll be right back with Tommy Ashley and I. We're going to break down some of the sounds that we heard from Coach Brown this week. But you're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL. And shout out all the Tar Heel fans who have come to join us and imbibe and eat and hang. We'll be right back after this and listen to Inside Carolina Live on WCHL 97.9 The Hill.
For 20 years, there's been no better.
On 97.9 The Hill, WHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
What is good, everybody? Inside Carolina Live. Hitting segment 3. We appreciate you joining us. A little Lupe fiasco bringing us back. Thanks to Brighton McConnell in the studio. Bringing us up with the pumping up the jams and jamming up the pumps and all that beautiful stuff. If you're listening to this show, you are ready for some football this evening, and I do believe that the Tar Heels are going to kick off here in just a little bit. In Lane Stadium against Virginia Tech Hokies. This segment is usually where we bring in my co-host today and allow him to call this game week staples. And Jason Staples is going to come in here. We're going to talk about some of the X's and O's, some chalk talk, some real deep analysis, if you will, about what fans can expect to see tonight from both sides of offense and both sides of defense. So, Jason, where do you want to start? What's the biggest question mark, the biggest hubbub, the biggest point of contention that will probably tell or foretell a team's fortunes for the game tonight?
Well, the thing I've got a couple things circled on either side of the ball. So on the one side, we already talked on defense and about some of that. So I'm going to start with the offense. To me, you've got some question marks because of all of the guys that were lost in terms of offensive production last year. You know what you have coming back on the offensive line. Now, are those guys in a little better shape than they were in last year? Can they take a top-level offensive line and not just one with a lot of potential? That's definitely something to watch. But the thing that I kind of circled is what's Sam Howell going to get from those new outside receivers? Because last year, when Carolina needed a big play, when they were kind of back against the wall, it's one of those points where every game, Matt Brown likes to preach that every game basically comes down to 5 plays. Well, a couple of those plays would be De'Ami Brown catching a long ball from Sam Howell, just winning a vertical route, and just being a stud that you couldn't cover one-on-one. Who's going to be that guy?
Who is that guy? Absolutely.
And are they going to have that guy? If they don't have that guy, then Sam Howell's biggest strength, which is his ability to throw the long ball. So to me, it's a matter of who's going to be the guy to replace, in particular, De'Ami Brown. I think they're going to be fine in the slot. I think Josh Downs is actually an upgrade over a guy who's pretty good last year. But Josh Downs is really good. The question for me is who's going to take the top off the defense? And is that going to be reliable like it was last year? Because it was like clockwork last year. It's like, their other team just scored to go ahead by 3. Or they just tied the game. It's third quarter. It's about time for them to, there it is. Touchdown, De'Ami Brown.
Clockwork.
And are they going to have that guy? And this game is going to tell us a lot about where they're going to be on that. And that's the thing I'm circling the most.
So let's stay here. Let's talk about kind of what Virginia Tech likes to do on defense and what UNC can expect to see. And watching some tape, I saw a lot of stunts on defensive line. That's a Justin Hamilton calling card, but I did see that. There's some 3 under 3 deep zone stuff. They like to, they like to have their linebacker creep up and then have the safety fill that spot, which to your point earlier, Devin Hunter, who they have now, was not available last year. So they've got a new guy to fill that spot.
He's a stud.
Is this a situation where UNC tonight is specifically going to try to pick on the nickelback that Virginia Tech trots out there? Or do we expect Virginia Tech to try to get some pass rush off of blitz and exotic stuff to hurry Sam up and to make him trust those new guys that you talked about?
The answer to both of those is yes. So Carolina's going to come into this game. As long as the nickelback is covering Josh Downs, that nickelback is circled as one of the ducks.
Give him Parker.
Right? Find a way to make that guy earn his scholarship against Josh Downs. And they're going to find ways to move Josh Downs around and get him against the matchups that they want, to let him do his stuff, because he's as good a slot receiver as there is in the country. And I'm comfortable saying that before he's ever started to try to do to take away a slot. They're going to run, they do what you mentioned, 3 deep, 3 under. They've got a lot of fire zone type stuff where they're bringing a 5th rusher from places that can't necessarily make the state off of a pre-snap look. And then they're going to play 3 deep, 3 or man match basically, which it turns into a 3 deep essentially if you run vertical. They're going to play that kind of defense behind it with a under. And so they're going to do a lot of that stuff. They're going to play some man. And that's where when they do play some man, when they go man free on that type of look, that's where Carolina needs to hurt. And last year, this is going to be the first game without Carter and Williams.
Yeah.
Last year was the Carter and Williams show with
RPO everything.
With Sam Powell as kind of the supporting actor. No, he was the supporting actor who stole the show a lot. But this is his first go-round as the show. This is now the Sam Howell show for the. The question is, what are they going to be able to get when now, instead of going into the game where our plan is we're going to go healthy doses of those backs, because that's our biggest strength, to then let Howell do what he does off of that, to this being Howell's show, and then the run kind of comes as a support to that. How much is that going to change what they're able to do offensively? I know Longo wants to run, but without those guys, how much are they going to get out of it?
So how does that happen? It's literally it's like we've got this mind meld going on. Because I had on here is the UNC offense going to actually try to pass to set up the run as opposed to what we're used to seeing. Is it going to be the quick game and some of these edge throws that Sam likes to do and Longer likes to call? Is this an opportunity for a guy like Garrett Walston, or to your point from earlier in the show, Todd Chandler, finding some space? Are these the things that will open it up for the guys to win the matchups on the outside? Is that something we can pretty much just expect to happen in heavy doses?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's one of the things that, first of all, it is Phil Longo's offense, and Longo has a system that he really believes in, and for good reason. He's going to do a lot of the same things. A lot of it's going to look similar. But he is going to have tailored some of these things for his guys. And, last year there were times where he would go two backs in the backfield because you had Carter and Williams.
Those two backs were not bad.
Right. Those guys have a pretty. You're going out on a limb here, but they might end up being pretty good at football.
If you need to borrow $20, I'm sure they could probably help you.
Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna change some things and emphasize your strength there. On this team, you're going to go a lot more single back, and you're going to go 5 box, and Powell becomes a runner. So there's some additional stuff that we might see there. But I mean, it's still the Longo offense. He's still going to try to run the stuff that he runs to set up the pass. It's still going to be RPO heavy because he wants Powell to principles. But where the real strength is sort of flipped a little bit, and he knows that, and he's going to call to that.
I'm going to ask this question just to make some of our Inside Carolina subscribers really happy. Who's going to be the guy that makes Dax Holyfield look bad tonight? Is it going to be Walston or is it going to be Chandler?
I'm going to go with Chandler and also Josh Downs because at some point there's going to be you're going to have him one-on-one. You're going to have him one-on-one in the open field with Downs with the ball in his hand.
Player. Let's flip the field a little bit and talk about Virginia Tech's offense and what they like to do. We mentioned earlier, Blackshear and Holston are really, really stout running the ball. Granted, they lost, and his name escapes me. They lost the kid from last year, the transfer from Kansas. Who am I oversimplifying to think that Virginia Tech might try to play some defense tonight on offense by taking the air out of the ball, slowing the clock down, using all of the play clock, trying to keep Sam Howell off the field a little bit?
I don't think they'll do that. No, I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll just play their game. And part of that is that Fuente's a good coach. And the thing about taking the air out of football is if you have a good offense, and they do, it doesn't necessarily help you. It may just throw you out of rhythm.
Sure.
So they're going to try to play for their rhythm, and what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to. They think that
they want the track meet.
Yeah, they're fine with the track meet because they feel like offensively they've got the weapons to be able to score. And the question is, is Carolina better enough on defense to be able to slow that down? So, they've got players, and it's not just Holston and Blackshear. The third guy, I said Antoine Smith a couple times in the first segment, mixing up with a player from about 10 years ago, Antoine Green.
Antoine Smith was a good player.
He was a good player, but, anyway.
Not relevant to tonight's game.
But Herbert, the back from last year, was, he was dynamic in the open field. King is the closest to that. So we're going to see probably their third back a few times. And when he's on the field, you kind of need to be aware of that speed. But the thing that they're going to do is I don't see them slowing it down. I don't see them doing a lot of that. What they're going to try to do is to create an offensive rhythm. That's really what to give easy throws, easy reads on the perimeter. He likes to throw to the edge and really give his quarterback a lot of easy stuff while also running his quarterback. Burmeister can fly. He's a guy that, he has basically track speed. He's maybe not as elusive, which is why he hasn't broken as many long runs as his speed might suggest. They can run. So they're going to combine those things, and then what they're trying to do is set you up with all that stuff to the outside, moving the quarterback around.
A lot of double tight end pre-snap movement too.
All sorts of that stuff to basically work in the possession stuff and stretch the field horizontally. And then they want to hit you on the deep cross, on digs, and on those, and that's where they're going to try to hit you for your big plays, posts, deep crosses, and things like that.
So their rhythm is to get you thinking for X.
Steps back, and now you've got a post route over the top where the safety had to come down for the quarterback sweep. It's that sort of thing. For Carolina to be able to do well against that, first of all, you have to tackle on the edge.
Right. When
they do these dink and dunk things to try to stretch it, you have to tackle well. But more than anything, you've got to find ways with your front and you have to tackle well. But more than anything, you've got to find ways with your front and with some games that you can play to limit what they're able to do with moving the quarterback around and create some losses early on first down and put them in situations where they can't be as much in rhythm. They're not nearly as good when they have to throw as when they're throwing within their rhythm and within because they want to throw. So if you're Jay Bateman, you've got to win first down. And I'm going to use a lot of stunts and games up front to mix up some things for that quarterback run. And I'm going to bring some edge pressure at different points. I'm going to bring the nickel back a lot in this game to try to cause just enough pressure to be able to to get them off schedule a little bit. If I can get a tackle for loss on one first down and a drive, I feel like I'm probably going to get a stop against this offense.
Are you thinking like tight foot stuff and multiple stand-up rushers? Or
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brady, basically, there's not too many stand-up rushers to put out there tonight.
Yeah, I think with what they do, I mean, they're going to go a lot of 11 type. When they go too tight, let him get after
And you'll give that up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, let him get after it, and you stop the run. You try to set the edge so the quarterback can get outside, and you limit it with those front five, and then you got everybody else to cover, and you feel pretty good about that.
So here, that's my next question is before we hit the break here, does UNC finally have the dogs on the back four to be able to do that? To be able to let those guys be on island, stop all the side-to-side stuff that Fuente and his offense want to do? Does UNC finally have a chance to do that tonight to mitigate a Trey Turner, to mitigate the outside stuff you just talked about?
I think they do, but tonight's going to be the one. Tonight's going to tell it. I mean, Grimes, Duck, Mike.
They're going to have their chances. That's for sure.
You guys got me. That's what I want to do because that's my defense, my biggest defensive strength, and I want to use my biggest defensive strength to take away what they can do with Trey Turner and the rest without having to put any other defensive resources to them, because that allows me to get creative with everybody else. So to me, if they beat you with where you're best, you tip your hat, you go down and say, "Great job, I did the best that I could." But that to me is what you have to do, and you have to commit those resources to stopping the tight end, the slot receiver, and all that movement on the interior with everybody else.
And this is where I think the depth shows up, right? You've got the four that can play. You've got four good corners. You got safeties now that you feel good about, but you can start running in these fresh guys in your front seven. You've got speed in a guy like Asante. You've got a lockdown guy like Gimmel that knows the defense inside and out. You can run these edge rushers like a Des Evans and all the other young guys they brought in. Just stand them up and say, hey, go be fast. Go be athletic.
Well, and set the edge. The thing is, if you get too far upfield against these guys, because of how they like to run the quarterback on the outside,
Then
he's going to cause problems. What you want is them to try to run that quarterback sweep right into Des Evans setting the edge. And with his length and his mobility, suddenly he just engulfs the quarterback who's trying to get outside. That's what you're trying to do.
All right, we're going to take a break here from Oldie's Tavern. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live. I'm Joey Powell. He's Jason Staples. We'll be right back after the break. Here on 979 The Hill. We'll see you
A little ahead of time.
This is Ryan Taylor.
I believe it was supposed to be out at 56:50 instead of 59. That's my fault.
It's time for the Triple Tire Drive Happy Drive of the Game.
What is good, everybody? Appreciate you being here. Mainly because Tommy Ashley is just the worst because he's not here. So we'll make sure we rip on Tommy for not being here. We're hoping to get a call in from Greg Barnes here to Sunday to be on the scene from Blacksburg. But we appreciate him being here. Really, we're just trying to get you guys ready before we hand it off here just a little bit to the Tavern Radio Network. We got some folks tuning in on YouTube. We got all kinds of stuff. We got a Javonte Williams jersey ready to give away here. So if you're in person, come by and register for that. We'll give that away after the show. But we should have Greg Barnes ready to go. Greg, you there, buddy?
I'm here.
Greg, man, I appreciate you being here. You are the guy that everybody goes to from inside Carolina. You are the writer du jour, the writer extraordinaire, Grand Poobah. I'm running out of things to call you, but I appreciate you. What does it feel like in Blacksburg right now? Is it buzzing as much as we expect it to be since it's the first time humans have been able to go to a football game in about 2 years?
It is. I'll tell you, I was spoiled last year a little bit because I could just pull up to my parking space about half an hour from the game time, get out, go into the stadium. That is not the case. I've got for a long time today. First time in 2019, that was the case. Yeah, vibrant atmosphere here. There's tailgates going on tonight. But it's perfect weather. Clear skies. I mean, it's maybe 70 degrees. People out everywhere. So it's what you expect. It's going to be a pumped up crowd tonight. It's going to be a challenge for Tar Heels. We actually responded to Tar Heels then. At 6+4. Get food as you can imagine. So,
Has the pregame atmosphere got you even more amped up, or do you feel like maybe that the Hokies are going to make it closer than you originally had us thinking?
My concern with Virginia Tech has always kind of been what's going on with Justin Fuente. Is he the guy that the program needs? And I've said several times with the fact that their athletic director had to have a press conference. It's been his choice to keep Fuente last year. I think he does a lot. They haven't recruited very well. In fact, Foster now second year without him. The defense hasn't been good to see well. A lot of question marks around the program now. And as long as they keep this thing close and get through that initial period, I think Carolina will be able to pull away the way.
So I wouldn't disagree with anything you just said. What do you think the one, I guess, hidden or unanticipated wild card, however you want to call it, what's the one thing that could really derail things for the Tar Heels tonight? Is it an unexpected injury? Is it turnovers? Is it somebody from Virginia Tech that's having a game of their life? Which one of those do you feel like is the most expected, unexpected opportunity?
Well, I think it's easy to say injuries or turnovers, right? Because you just can't predict that. There's a random event, and they can change the course of the game. And Chapter Hill might change, but you see that I'm saying with the judge, and then he's not very good. I hope people say he actually different on that because he was able to get that experience last year. They think he can actually be a really good quarterback. So if he goes up to that building, the fact that he's such an incredible athlete, he's a good runner, that's been a problem defensively, in recent years. And so if he lives up, we finally got taken figured out. There's a lot of things that have to be run. If those things are correct, this North Carolina team will prove to be a legitimate top 10 team, and there should be a breakout for it if not. They got to check those boxes. Everybody should be looking for it. Not running back.
I have to say, there's multiple ways you can consume this show. If you just want to get as much of myself, I'm going to show my age and call it the YouTubes or the internets. But Gregory, we've got people that are interacting.
A couple questions in the chat about how often do we see guys like Robert Delaware, Jabari Gracie, Howard Eccles in game one against Virginia Tech? I think it's a valid question considering all the talk has been about how great. How often do we see those guys tonight?
I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of the young linebackers on defense. We're going to see a bunch of them on every special team.
Every kid, they're going to be everywhere.
Every kickoff team, kick return, they're going to be out there. I don't think we're going to see much of the quarterback. You rave about what you got there, but if you have a really good veteran, that young guy's this year, unless you have something that you're hoping doesn't happen. happen with one of the other guys. So those snaps, depending on circumstances and scenarios and all that. But I think this is especially openers. Openers, you're going to see less of the young guys usually than any other part of the season. Really, you're going to get them some reps and get them ready to go.
Yeah, I think you saw that last year too. It's after the bye week. It's after those guys have really had plenty of time to see live bullets on special teams, and then they've had a chance to really over-rep it. That's not a bad thing. Don't feel like that's a problem. That probably means that your guys ahead of them on the 2 deep are doing the job, and that those guys ahead of them on the 2 deep are keeping things clean. And to what Jason said a second ago, that means the things that you don't want tonight.
Yeah, and one last thing. There's a good rule of thumb here. Start hearing a huge camp hype about a guy, and this guy is the truth.
Right.
Then set your calendar and expect that guy to blow up. Then we heard tons about him last year, but we all knew kind of this year.
That's right. Being honest.
Gregory, by the way, that was a great first question. So we're only going to allow you to ask good questions from the folks that are listening. So you can tell everybody that's watching on YouTube or listening on social media or whatever.
And I think that depends on a lot of factors. One being what is the longer one out of the offense, how many runs the team goes. It nice to be balanced, obviously. The entire diet was air raid, power, running game, and whatnot. But that was when you had young. Now you got Ty Chandler and Caleb Hood, who obviously they're high on. But Ty Chandler's a veteran. Caleb Hood has never played in a college game. So I think it's a valid question as far as, even though they say that's what happens. Ty Chandler is an experienced guy, but still, he's a big body that can stop linebacker. But still, how many touches does Caleb Hood get tonight in the opportunity to make some plays?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a hard one. I think some of it depends on how much they're in the red zone. Because I actually think he's going to be he might end up being the primary short yardage back.
So like Javonte was.
What can't happen for you?
What is the one thing that UNC does not want to have happen tonight and expect success?
The secondary needs to be what they were last year. They can't be the secondary, because we expect.
All right, I'm going to throw a curveball. Which secondary? Because they never had. I don't know if they ever had the same guys more than 2 games. But okay, so the guys that tried out tonight, what do they need to do? The 4 guys that we're expecting to see tonight that are on the 2 deep, what do they need to do?
They can't, if they're left on an island, they can't be picked on by UC's offensive burgers. Which is based on the talk around Storm Duck, Tony Grimes, Kylie Michael. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Right? They're supposed to be fantastic. Tony Grimes, preseason all ACC, Storm Duck, better than Tony Grimes. If he played last year, he's also in the defense where Conley needs to make tackles. Now, Conley's probably going to move on to make tackles that he shouldn't be making, but that's just personality. Be like, I'm going to see that guy, and I'm going to go get him.
Listen at home or online at Chapel Borough. I'll be right back inside Carolina Live from Oldie's Tavern in Chapel Hill. You're listening to WCHL 97.9 The Hit.
South Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship Talk Sports.
Turn it up and rip the knob off, Brighton. That's Brighton McConnell manning the ones and twos back in the WCHL studios. We appreciate it. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live. Man, we're getting close to I guess kickoff now. We're within about 90 minutes or so, and if we've waited this long, I feel like we can make it another 90 minutes. But I don't want to write checks in my rear end.
So that this guy gets passed off, your defensive tackle gets passed off to the tackle, and now they'll be there to pick him up. If the guard carries the tackle too far, the communication, the ability to handle what they weren't good at last year in the first place. So that's where my concern is.
What else you got?
Forward. The other guy that I think doesn't get nearly.
I think.
They love his
But
building.
like when we talk about the defense, we're like, oh,
Oh, man, I'm like,
I got a court. Use big words.
oh, man, I'm almost 40.
Right. One more question before we do a little giveaway here.
over under 4.5 sacks tonight by UNC.
I'm going over. Just you need it. Johnny T-shirt don't have it. You don't need it. JohnnyT-shirt.com or stop. Game next week. Don't show up in old. Now close your eyes and think about the steps that you ran this summer in the 100-degree heat. Think back to last spring.
And you